Welcome back to the movie pit, boils and ghouls. It is I, Dr. Ghoulyula, rising from my coffin and critique to dissect another celluloid corpse for your morbid entertainment. Today's specimen. I still know what you did last summer. That festering 98 sequel that crawled from the shallow grave of his predecessor's success like a half-decomposed cached rat. Oh my fucking god. What a glorious train wreck this movie is. The studio executives must have been huffing formaldehyde when they greenlit this sun-soaked slasher that trades the foggy ambience of the original for palm trees and pina coladas. But that's exactly why we're here, isn't it? To celebrate the beautiful disaster that proves Hollywood will beat any dead horse until it's nothing but a bloody pulp. So grab your raincoats and hooks as we dive into this waterlogged corpse of 90s horror cinema. So let's start by wading through the putrid plot of this movie, which is about as coherent as a drunk teenager telling a ghost story. 1 year after surviving the fishhook-wielding maniac Ben Willis, our heroine Julie James is suffering from PTSD, which manifests exclusively in convenient dream sequences and classroom screaming fits, because that's totally how trauma works, right? The plot kicks into high gear when Julie's roommate Karla wins a trip to the Bahamas by answering a radio contest question about Brazil's capital. These fucking geniuses answer Rio and still win. What should be red flag number one that something's amiss. But hey, free trip. Who gives a shit if it's during hurricane season? Not these rocket scientists. Meanwhile, Julie's boyfriend Ray decides to surprise her but gets attacked on a lonely road by our hook-handed friend. He survives, of course. He spends the rest of the movie on his own bizarre side quest, which includes pawning an engagement ring, buying a gun, and somehow discovering exactly which Bahamas resort Julie is staying at without any goddamn information whatsoever. Our quartet of future corpses, Julie, Karla, Karla's boyfriend Tyrell, and the suspiciously friendly Will, arrive at the most deserted resort in the Caribbean just in time for a fucking hurricane to trap them there. What are their odds? It's almost like someone planned this shit, as bodies start piling up faster than empty tequila shops. The movie delivers its crown jewel of stupidity. Well, Benson is actually Ben's son. Get it? Well, Ben's son. Holy motherfucking shit. That wordplay is so clever it makes me want to drive a fish ship through my own eye socket. This twist is telegraphed with all the subtlety of a machete to the face. The plot holes in this thing are big enough to drive a fishing trawler through. How did the killer know Julie would win the contest when anyone could have called in? How did he fool an entire radio station? How does Ray know exactly where to find Julie? Why does Ben go through this elaborate Bahamas scheme when he could have just killed Julie in her Boston apartment? The movie's response to these logical questions is essentially shut the fuck up and look at Jennifer Love Hewitt running in a tank top. And that's before we even get to the ending, where Ben accidentally murders his own son. Julie somehow becomes Annie Oakley with a revolver that never needs reloading. And then we get a dream sequence fake out that's so painfully derivative it makes you want to apologize to the original film for how badly his legacy has been butchered. I swear to God, the collective IQ of characters in this movie would struggle to heat a fucking pot of water. These have to be the dumbest slasher victims in horror history, making decisions so monumentally stupid they fail a survival instinct test administered to a lemming. Let's start with a radio contest that kicks this whole shitshow into motion. What's the capital of Brazil? Rio de Janeiro. They answer confidently, like they're dropping knowledge bombs instead of broadcasting their geographical incompetence to the entire fucking eastern seaboard. There's a giant globe in the hotel lobby that could have corrected them if they bothered to look at it for 2 seconds. But no, these idiots are too busy being pretty to pick up a book or, I don't know, use their college-educated brains for something other than planning their beach outfits. Then there's Ray's magical mystery tour. This motherfucker gets attacked on a road in the middle of nowhere, survives, escapes from a hospital, pawns an engagement ring, buys a gun, and then, through what can only be described as plot-convenient telepathy, pinpoints exactly which Bahamas resort his girlfriend is staying in. No phone calls, no travel agent, no information whatsoever. He just knows, because the script says so. It's like watching a homing pigeon with the concussion somehow find its way across the fucking Atlantic. Julie and her friends accept a free vacation during hurricane season without a single raised eyebrow. They arrive at a hotel that's emptier than my bank account after rent day. And not one of these geniuses thinks, maybe this isn't normal. Even when people start disappearing, they still split up to search the hotel like they're auditioning for Scooby-Doo. My personal favorite display of stupidity has to be when they discover the bodies are missing. Instead of getting the fuck out or barricading themselves in a room, they decide the best course of action is to confront the creepy voodoo guy living in the basement. Brilliant strategy. Nothing says self-preservation like antagonizing the one person warning you about danger. And Julie, our supposed final girl, has learned absolutely nothing from her previous encounter with a hook-wielding maniac. She falls for the same shit twice. The girl has the survival instincts of a moth flying repeatedly into a bug zap. When someone mysteriously appears to help you in a horror movie, they're probably trying to fucking kill you. That's Slasher 101. But apparently Julie was absent that day. Holy shit. The acting in this movie is a masterclass in late 90s mediocrity. Jennifer Love Hewitt returns as Julie James with exactly 2 facial expressions in her arsenal: wide-eyed terror and quivering lip sadness. To her credit, she's perfected the art of the horror movie screen. It's practically her superpower at this point. She shrieks with such conviction you'd think the paycheck depended solely on her lung capacity. When she's not screaming her face off, she's running in slow motion, somehow managing to look both terrified and like she's shooting the shampoo commercial. Then there's Freddie Prinze Jr., who approaches his role with all the enthusiasm of a man waiting at the DMV. His emotional range spans from mildly annoyed to slightly more annoyed, delivering lies with the wooden conviction of a mannequin that's been taught to speak. The chemistry between him and Hewitt is so non-existent you'd think they filmed their scenes in separate fucking countries. Their reunion scene has all the passion of 2 distant cousins meeting at funeral. Ray spends most of his limited screen time looking like he's trying to remember if he left the stove on. Brandy, fresh off her R&B success, brings her 90s pop star energy to the role of Karla, Julie's best friend and exposition machine. Her acting technique consists primarily of widening her eyes, tossing her hair, and delivering sassy one-liners with an "I'm too good for this shit" attitude that, honestly, is the most realistic thing in the movie. Every scene she's in feels like it was conceived by studio executives who said, "How do we make this appeal to the MTV demographic?" She's not terrible, but you can practically see her agent standing off camera reminding her this will help sell albums. Mekhi Phifer does what he can with the thankless boyfriend of the best friend role, but his character is so thinly written he might as well be wearing a t-shirt that says Future Corpse. Their relationship has all the depth of a puddle in the Sahara, serving mainly as a counterpoint to Julie's mopey bullshit and to provide another body for the killer's tally. But nothing, and I mean nothing, compares to the absolute fucking travesty that is Jack Black as Titus, the dreadlock stoner hotel employee. It's the kind of performance that makes you wonder if Black lost a bit. His offensive island accent comes and goes like cellular reception in a tunnel, and his dreadlocks look like they were applied by a props department with a grudge. Every second he's on screen is physically painful, like watching a talented actor deliberately sabotage his own career. It's the cinematic equivalent of stepping on a Lego. The supporting cast doesn't fare much better. Jeffrey Combs is completely wasted as the hotel manager. Matt Settle as well has all the charisma of wallpaper paste, and Jennifer Esposito's bartender character exists solely to pour drinks and die. The only person who seems to understand what movie they are in is Muse Watson as Ben Willis, who manages to be menacing despite being given absolutely nothing to do but lumber around in a raincoat. Put them all together in a room, and you guys, all the interpersonal chemistry of a middle school dance where everyone has lives. Even when they are supposed to be lifelong friends partying in paradise, they interact like strangers stuck in an elevator. It's a cast assembled not for their ability to work together, but for their ability to look good on a poster. And motherfucker, it shows. Danny Canna's direction of this sequel is like watching someone try to cook a gourmet meal using only a microwave and leftover fast food. It's technically competent. He knows where to put the camera, how to frame a shot, and when to cue a jump scare. But there's not a single moment that suggests any ambition beyond "let's not fuck this up" complete. The film has all the artistic vision of a corporate training video, but with considerably more machetes. The tropical Bahamas setting is genuinely the one inspired choice in the entire production. After the gloomy small-town atmosphere of the first film, moving the action to a sun-drenched island paradise creates a jarring but effective contrast. Bright, open beaches by day transform into claustrophobic death traps by night. It's a smart visual inversion that could have really elevated the material if anyone involved had given half a shit about doing something interesting with it. Instead, Cannon squanders this potential on a parade of recycled horror setups so predictable you could time them with a stopwatch. Dark hallway, check. Killer reflection in the mirror, check. False alarm jump scare followed by the real attack, fucking check. The direction feels like someone working through AI to direct the slasher film checklist from 1982, but with none of the passion or ingenuity of the classics it's aping. The film's visual style is slick in that late 90s music video way that screams we have money but no ideas. Every frame is polished to a high gloss, with beautiful people beautifully lit even when they are being gutted. The cinematography by Vernon Layton has all the depth and subtlety of a cologne advertisement. Everything's composed with technical proficiency, yet nothing has any weight or consequence. This horror filmmaking as processed cheese product. When the kills finally come, they're staged with all the imagination of someone who skimmed through slasher films for dumbness. The death scenes lack both the raw, visceral impact of 80s horror and the self-aware cleverness of Cannon's contemporaries. Instead, we get perfunctory stabbings and hookings filmed with a strange detachment, as if the camera itself is bored and checking its watch. There's a moment when the storm hits the island that briefly hints at what could have been: darkness, howling wind, disorientation. But Cannon immediately retreats to the safety of conventional framing and predictable rhythms. It's filmmaking without risk, without personality, without any discernible point of view beyond let's get the shit in the can and collect our paychecks. The result is a film that looks expensive but feels cheap. A hollow exercise in going through the motions when what the material needed was a filmmaker willing to go for the fucking throat. The cinematography and I Still Know What You Did Last Summer works overtime to convince you that you're watching a better movie than you actually are. Vernon Layton's slick, glossy camera work gives everything a high-end sheen that's about as authentic as the hurricane that traps our characters on the island. Every frame is meticulously composed and beautifully lit. Julie's panic attacks are bathed in moody blues. The Bahamas sunshine is cranked to postcard perfection. And even the darkest corridors have that professionally spooky glow that screams studio horror. What makes this technical proficiency so frustrating is how it only highlights the emptiness at the film's core. It's like putting a $5,000 paint job on a broken-down Pinto. It might catch your eye, but it doesn't fix the fundamental problems. The camera glides through the resort with MTV music video smoothness, creating visual interest where the script provides none. You can practically feel the cinematographer trying to inject some artistry into scenes that deserve none. The kill sequences are particularly telling. They're shot with a competence that borders on disinterest. Technically well-framed but lacking any genuine imagination or impact. When Tyrell gets slashed in the kitchen, the scene is lit with a sophistication that the moment simply hasn't earned. The death of Nancy is captured with smooth trekking shots and precise framing that feels completely disconnected from the supposed horror we're witnessing. It's cinema on autopilot, pretty but passionless. Even the film's attempts at visual tension fall flat. The classic slasher trope of killers' POV shots following unsuspecting victims feels mechanical rather than menacing. The camera lurks behind Jack Black's character with all the subtlety of a tour guide pointing out attractions. Look here, folks. This stoner with fake dreadlocks is about to die. Ready your popcorn. Perhaps most damning is how the cinematography tries to elevate moments that are fundamentally stupid. When Will reveals he's Ben's son, the camera dramatically circles around him in what should be a shocking moment, but instead feels like putting a spotlight on the script's most embarrassing line. The glossy visuals don't hide the film's shortcomings. They magnify them, making each plot hole and tired cliché all the more glaringly obvious. What we're left with is a film that looks expensive but feels cheap. A technically proficient exercise in horror filmmaking without a soul or an original thought behind the viewfinder. The sleek visual package only makes the film's creative bankruptcy more apparent, like dressing a corpse in designer clothes. It doesn't make it any less than. If the cinematography of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is putting lipstick on a pig, then the sound design and music are basically spraying it with dollar store perfume and calling it a fucking date. The audio elements of this film are so painfully generic they make elevator music sound like Beethoven's Fifth. The jump scare stays, my God. They crank up to 11 every time something remotely threatening happens, as if the composer was being paid by the decibel. Remember when horror movies use silence to build tension? This movie doesn't. It's terrified of letting a moment breathe, slapping you across the face with bang, crash, boom, every 30 seconds in case you might have dozed off during the scintillating dialogue. The sound designers apparently believed that the only way to make audiences give a shit about the fisherman's return was to accompany every appearance with the audio equivalent of someone dropping the piano down a stairwell. The late 90s soundtrack is a time capsule of forgettable alternative rock and R&B that seems chosen purely to sell CDs rather than enhance any actual scenes. Jennifer Love Hewitt's karaoke scene is particularly painful, not because of her singing, but because the musical cues signaling something bad is about to happen are so heavy-handed they might as well include a subtitle that says "Be scared now, motherfucker." What's truly depressing is how the sound team squanders the potential of the tropical setting. The Caribbean island during a hurricane should be an audio playground, crashing waves, howling winds, creaking palm trees. Instead, we get the same recycled thunderclaps and generic brain effects you find in a direct-to-video haunted house movie. The environmental sounds are so obviously added in post-production that you half expect to see the sound engineer's watermark on the screen. The worst offense might be the killer's signature hook scraping against surfaces. What should be spine-tingling comes across as someone cleaning their BBQ grill too aggressively. It's the audio equivalent of someone going all ooh with the flashlight under their chin. Not scary, just sad and desperate. Kind of like this entire goddamn movie. Let's talk about the kills in this bloody mess, because if there's one thing a slasher sequel should deliver, it's creative death scenes. But fortunately, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer treats its murder set pieces with all the imagination of a tax accountant filing routine paperwork. The film's body count is higher than the original, which might be its only real accomplishment. But quantity doesn't equal quality. The kills are so fucking formulaic you could set your watch by them. Character goes somewhere wrong. Mysterious shadow appears. Quick swings. Body drops. Reza repeat until the credits roll. Remember Derek the Dockhand? Neither does anyone else, because his death is so forgettable it might as well have happened off-screen. The movie can't even commit to showing us the good stuff. When Titus gets it, the camera cuts away faster than a network TV censor at a strip club, in an era when Scream was pushing boundaries with its elaborate, tension-building death sequences. This movie's approach to murder is embarrassingly limp-dick. The housekeeper's death might be the most insulting. She finds bloody sheets, the classic horror setup, and instead of building suspense, the film just gives her a quick slash and drags her away. It's slasher filmmaking on autopilot, lacking any of the sick creativity that makes these movies worth watching in the first place. Tyrell's kitchen death is slightly better, if only because Mekhi Phifer sells the hell out of it. But it's still shot like the director was afraid to get fake blood on the camera. And poor Nancy the bartender might as well have disposable character tattooed on her forehead for all the impact her death makes. Compare these bland killings to what was happening in horror at the time. While urban legend was giving us creative deaths based on folklore and Bride of Chucky was gleefully embracing its own absurdity, I Still Know was serving up the cinematic equivalent of a plain bologna sandwich. Even the original film had more memorable kills with Helen's pursuit through the store and Barry's encounter at the gym. The PG-13 rating doesn't help matters. Every slash, stab, and hook to the chest is carefully framed to avoid showing too much carnage. It's slasher movie blue balls, promising visceral thrills but delivering sanitized violence that wouldn't disturb a middle schooler. For a movie about a vengeful fisherman with a giant fucking hook, you'd expect at least one genuinely disturbing gutting. But the most graphic thing in this movie is probably Jack Black's hair. When your most memorable kill involves someone accidentally murdering their own son, you've got a serious creativity problem. These death scenes don't inspire fear or shock. They inspire yawns and bathroom breaks. In the pantheon of slasher movie kills, these rank somewhere between completely forgettable and why did I pay money to see this shit. To understand I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, you need to place it in the bloody, cash-grabbing context of late 90s horror cinema. This film isn't just a disappointing sequel, It's a perfect time capsule of everything cynical and calculated about post-Scream slasher films. The late 90s saw Hollywood executives suddenly realize that horror could be profitable again, thanks to Wes Craven's 1996 masterpiece. But instead of learning the right lessons from Scream's self-aware brilliance, studios just copied his glossy aesthetics and pretty young cast. I still know as the poster child for this approach. A film engineered in a boardroom rather than born from any creative passion. Look at the fucking casting. Jennifer Love Hewitt, fresh off Party of Five and Can Hardly Wait. Freddie Prinze Jr., teen heartthrob extraordinaire. And Brandy, an R&B star with minimal acting experience but massive name recognition. This wasn't casting for a horror film. It was casting for MTV's Spring Break special with some murder thrown in. The movie exists in that strange late 90s bubble where horror became weirdly sanitized, going with the practical effects and genuine atmosphere of 80s slashers, replaced by bloodless kills and soundtrack opportunities. Every death scene feels designed to cut away just in time for the MTV censors, while the Bahamas setting looks like it was chosen specifically to get the cast in swimwear for the promotional posters. This era of horror was all about murky ability over substance, urban legend, the faculty, disturbing behavior. They all followed the same playbook. Take conventionally attractive TV stars, put them in mildly threatening situations, add a marketable soundtrack, and voila, instant box office. Who cares if the end result is about as scary as a fucking kitten in a Halloween costume? I Still Know What You Did Last Summer represents the moment when horror became just another product to sell to teenagers alongside their WB television shows, and now that's what I call music. Compilations. The film has no voice, no perspective, and no goddamn soul. Just pretty people running from a generic killer in picturesque locations. The tragedy is that real horror innovation was happening elsewhere while mainstream slashers became increasingly disposable. The Blair Witch Project was about to revolutionize found footage. Japan was developing the psychological horror that would become The Ring. And indie filmmakers were pushing boundaries while major studios played it safe with formulaic shit like this. Looking at the numbers alone, you might think I Still Know What You Did Last Summer was some kind of triumph. The film raked in $84 million worldwide on a modest $24 million budget, which in Hollywood accounting terms is a fucking home run. It opened to $16.5 million in its first weekend, only losing the top spot to Adam Sandler's The Wonder Boy. Not too shabby for a brainless sequel that critics wanted to murder more savagely than the fisherman himself. Speaking of critics, they tore this movie a new one. It sits at pathetic 7% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is the kind of score usually reserved for direct-to-video Steven Seagal movies where he's clearly been replaced by a double in half the scenes. Mediocrity gave it a 21 out of 100, which basically translates to "this movie gave me a cinematic disease." One critic called it exactly the kind of rehash that gives horror sequels a bad name, which is like being called the poster child for disappointment. But here's the thing. Audiences didn't give a shit what critics thought. The cinema score was a B, which means regular moviegoers were perfectly satisfied with what they got. The teen demographic of the 90s wasn't looking for artistic integrity. They wanted to see Jennifer Love Hewitt run around in a tank top while a guy with a hook stalked her. Mission accomplished. This bizarre disconnect between critical reception and commercial success tells us everything about the state of horror in the late 90s. These movies weren't really selling scare-zone stories. They were selling familiar brand names and pretty faces. The words "I Know What You Did Last Summer" on a poster were enough to get teenagers to fork over their allowance money, regardless of quality. The film's financial success, despite its creative bankruptcy, is the most horrifying thing about it. It proved that studios could serve up any reheated garbage with a recognizable title and audiences would eat it up. That's scarier than any hook-wielding fisherman could ever be. Wow, let's wrap this fisherman's tale up, shall we? I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is a cinematic shit sandwich with extra mayo. It's the kind of movie that makes you question not just Hollywood's decision-making process, but your own life choices for sitting through it. The plot is nonsensical. The characters are dumbed with a box of hooks, and the twist is so obvious it might as well have been announced in the opening credits. Yet despite all its glaring flaws, the moronic premise, the wooden performances, the recycled scares, there's something oddly enjoyable about this movie. Like the theme park haunted house, is so artificial and predictable that it becomes comforting in its stupidity. It's a perfect time capsule of the 90s post-screen slasher boom, when horror movies were more concerned with having pretty casts and marketable soundtracks than actually scaring anyone. For fans of schlocky horror, there's enough here to warrant a drunk movie night with friends. The tropical setting at least provides eye candy while your brain cells commit mass suicide, and watching Jack Black in dreadlocks is its own special kind of horror. This is the cinematic equivalent of junk food. You know it's bad for you, but sometimes you just want to shove garbage into your face hole. I'm giving I Still Know What You Did Last Summer a 6.5 out of 10. It fails at everything it attempts to do, but does so with such earnest commitment to mediocrity that it loops back around to being moderately entertaining. It's the movie equivalent of a mullet. Business in the front, party in the back, and embarrassing from every angle. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Movie Pit, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming reviews. This has been Dr. Ghoulyula, reminding you that bad movies, like vengeful fishermen, never truly die. They just wait for a sequel. Sleep tight, my pretties. Then always check your backseat. You never know who might be waiting with a hook. And as always, till next time, kiddies.